Dr. Vusi Sibanda, Chairperson of African Diaspora Forum, is on the line to talk to us about the situation in Tunisia. The United States has urged the Tunisian Prime Minister Kais Saied to outline a swift return to the democratic path. This, of course, days after his shock seizure of governing powers. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and good morning to listeners, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for your time. If the Tunisian president doesn't speed up on forming a government, what will the outcome look like? We've heard that the leading up to the events playing out in Tunisia, television stations, reporters, radio stations, etc., have been gagged. Has that been has the pressure on news media been released? And is the government looking to start dialogues with the different government organizations to get the government up and running again?
Look, I think one of the issues that we really know is that the relationship between Tunisia and the US has been relatively good and trade, and Tunisia has been looked at as beacon of light, for especially the many countries, especially the Arab countries. So we believe that the pressure, the discussions that have taken place, that on its own should be enough motivation, I think, to get the Tunisian president to try and expedite, the process of bringing, the country back to normalcy and to democratic, processes. Obviously, the level and the extent, to which this is going to be done is the one that is a major concern, because we see that quite a good number of countries, that tend to look at themselves as democracies, always have got limitations, which could be, for example, the gagging, of the media, which could be such interference and the sham elections. And we know that Tunisia as well, is looked at as one of those countries, that has got a model, similar, to the America and various countries where basically there is some interference with full democratic systems. And therefore, our concern is obviously that, the president is going to be saying something, but what he's going to be doing might be something else. And when we look at the appointment as well, they might not necessarily be, very meritocratic, because we have seen, the picking up of, some opposition and then, letting them go. But those intimidatory tactics are actually very telling. And they actually are showing that, there are signs of, fear that's being, put into people. And that on its own does not really give confidence, as far as the extent to which, the processes will be very, free and very democratic.
Now, we know that the country's 2011 revolution, which inspired the Arab Spring, destabilized the entire region, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East. Things then settled down and the country moved on. But currently, there seems to be issues around a crumbling economy and the mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic there. Are those the two key issues, or are there other underlying political agendas that is creating more unsettlement in the country?
Look, I think obviously the changes that we saw, basically, arising from the Arab Springs and the ultimate final change in the constitution, we know that there's been a lot of work, from the president about changing the constitution, the desire to have the constitution changed and amended. And it could not be really surprising to see that the disbanding, of current government and so forth might be a means of paving a way, basically to change the constitution. So that could be one of the, major issues, that there is a desire to change the constitution, apart from, the economy that basically is crumbling. Obviously, economies don't normally crumble. I mean, we've got a country that has got good relations with the Western world. And that is seen as a light and one of the only and most democratic, countries.
Are you there, Dr. Vusi? Gosh, we've just lost him, and I'm not sure what's happening with the lines this morning. Apologies, we'll try and get him back online. I have two very important questions for him to wrap up with, but please do stay with us. We'll just try and reconnect with Dr. Vusi Sibanda, Chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, talking about the situation in Tunisia.
Hi, I think we got cut off there.
Oh, thank you for coming back. Okay. Two final questions. Saied has accused 460 businessmen of owing 13.5 billion dinars, which is approximately $4.9 billion to the state, to Tunisia. And he is wanting to recoup the money, and he's also saying that he won't turn into a dictator following the arrests of these people. He also goes on to say that he knows the constitutional text very well. He respects them, and he himself has taught them. And after all, he's not going to be turning into a dictator. He has the country's best interests at heart. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, that's quite interesting, because there's not a single dictator who has agreed to being a dictator and somebody said, look, I'm going to be a dictator. And the mere fact that he actually comes out and says, I'm not going to be a dictator, must be very worrying, to think that how is that possible? But look, I mean, he's talking about, business people that are owing, that much, amount of money. And one would wonder that as the president, how do you really come down to interact with business people and say, business people owe this kind of money, you want to recoup that money? Because the country has got processes. If the people owe money, there are processes to make sure that these people can be taken to court and what money is it that they are owing. But once he then comes and says, look, there is this much business people that owe the money, and how do they come to owe that money? What has been happening? So it gives you the question that, okay, maybe these are people that are supporting, people that are not seen to be, in his books or the opposition, and therefore not happy. So it's basically targeting these people, because we would not see a functional, a country where, the president is blaming business people, for owing money, and therefore the economy is crumbling. So these statements are really worrying, and they are telling you that, there is an underlying, current here, that is actually, the dictatorship, which is saying he's not a dictator. So he's actually judging or trying to silence people that are probably not in his book.
All right. That's all we have time for, Dr. Vusi Sibanda. Thank you indeed for your time. And that then is the situation as we see it for now in Tunisia. We will continue following the story in the days to come. It's exactly 8:50 a.m.
Okay.
Land with over